Well, here's something you have never heard a president say before. If I ever got impeached. The word impeach has not crossed the minds of most presidents. There is no reason to even mention the word during most presidencies, and there's been much media debate this year about whether it's too soon to discuss impeachment in the Trump presidency, and that debate ended today, decisively ended today, when the President of the United States discussed his own impeachment when he was asked about it on Fox News.
76 days away from the midterms. Hard to believe. If the Democrats take back power, do you believe they will try to impeach you?
Well, you know, I guess it says something like high crimes and all. I don't know how you can impeach somebody who's done a great job. I'll tell you what, if I ever got impeached, I think the market would crash. I think everybody would be very poor. Because without this thinking, you would see numbers that you wouldn't believe. In reverse.
Without this thinking, we never would have heard the President of the United States say, if I ever got impeached. And right there, stop right there, because I think right there are two definite song titles. In the musical about the Trump presidency that will be written by Lin-Manuel Miranda's great-great-granddaughter sometime down the road, the Without This Thinking, that's going to be one song title. We know that. And, of course, the melodic, If I Ever Got Impeached, has to be a song title in the Trump musical. Fox News and the president have decisively ended the debate on whether it's too soon to be discussing impeachment. On Tuesday night on this program, I realized that we had shifted from investigation coverage to impeachment coverage after federal prosecutors and Michael Cohen made history by declaring under oath in federal court in Manhattan that the President of the United States had committed 2 federal crimes for the principal purpose of influencing the election. But as we discussed here last night, Donald Trump was not the only person, in addition to Michael Cohen, who was accused of committing federal crimes in that courtroom on Tuesday. Prosecutors said that still unnamed members of the Trump campaign participated actively in those crimes and knew everything about those crimes, and that David Pecker, the chairman and CEO of the company that runs the National Enquirer, and the top editor of the National Enquirer, Dylan Howard, also were very important participants in the conspiracy to commit those crimes. Last night, at the beginning of this program, we wondered whether David Pecker might already be cooperating with federal prosecutors, and about 10 minutes later, we delivered the breaking news that David Pecker was indeed reportedly cooperating with federal prosecutors. That's what we knew last night. And today we discovered that David Pecker has already been granted immunity in his cooperation agreement with federal prosecutors, along with Dylan Howard. And as the day wore on, we learned more about what David Pecker knows and what he might possess. The Associated Press is reporting the National Enquirer kept a safe containing documents on hush money payments and other damaging stories it killed as part of its cozy relationship with Donald Trump leading up to the 2016 presidential election. People familiar with the arrangement told the Associated Press. Dylan Howard removed them from the safe in the weeks before Trump's inauguration. According to one person directly familiar with the events, it was unclear whether the documents were destroyed or simply were moved to a location known to fewer people. Here's who knows what was in that safe: David Pecker, Dylan Howard, Michael Cohen, and Donald Trump. And with today's reporting, the president might have even more trouble sleeping tonight than he did last night. The president has to somehow fall asleep knowing that David Pecker is telling federal prosecutors everything he knows about Donald Trump. And he has been collecting the dirt on Donald Trump for years and years and years and stashing it in the National Enquirer safe. And that dirt might include recordings. Prosecutors said that the evidence they have obtained to prove that Michael Cohen and Donald Trump and David Pecker conspired to commit federal crimes includes hard copy documents, seized electronic devices, and audio recordings made by Mr. Cohen. And the New York Times is reporting that the prosecutors might now have even more recordings from the National Enquirer. Dylan Howard, the company's chief content officer, who is also said to be cooperating, was known to have a recording device in his office, according to people familiar with his operations. And so the National Enquirer, after many years of protecting Donald Trump, is now helping a federal criminal investigation of Donald Trump. In other words, David Pecker and the National Enquirer have flipped.
This whole thing about flipping, they call it. I know all about flipping. For 30, 40 years, I've been watching flippers. Everything's wonderful, and then they get 10 years in jail, and they flip on whoever the next highest one is, or as high as you can go. It almost ought to be outlawed. I've had many friends involved in this stuff. It's called flipping, and it almost ought to be illegal.
He knows David Pecker has flipped, and he knows what David Pecker knows about him. And last night, at 1:10 a.m., the sleepless president tweeted this primal scream: "No collusion, rigged, witch hunt, exclamation point, all capital letters." There's the president of the United States, 3 hours after we first reported on this program that David Pecker had flipped, and the president is rage tweeting "no collusion, rigged, witch hunt." When the special prosecutor was closing in on President Richard Nixon, he wandered the halls of the White House at all hours of the night in a mixture of anger, depression, bitterness, and drunken stupor, but he didn't have Twitter. And so we didn't know the next day what he had been thinking at 1:10 a.m. Tonight is going to be worse, because tonight Donald Trump knows not only that David Pecker is cooperating, but that he's been granted immunity, and now there is more New York prosecution, investigation going on of the president that might lead to New York City and New York State prosecutions. And the president knows that his power of persuasion over even his own voters doesn't work when they take an oath as jurors. The president discovered last night, watching Fox News, that Paula Duncan, who is a proud Trump voter, is also one of the jurors who voted to convict Paul Manafort on all 18 counts. She also revealed that all of the rest of the jurors wanted to convict Paul Manafort on all 18 counts, except for one holdout juror. There was exactly one holdout on those 10 counts. And that's the reason Paul Manafort was convicted on 8 counts, and there was a hung jury on the other 10. And President Trump should by now know that Paul Manafort's likelihood of pleading guilty to the charges he's scheduled to go to trial on in Washington, D.C. next month skyrocketed after that Fox News interview with that juror in Manafort's Virginia case, because it is possible that a Washington, D.C. jury won't have even a single Trump voter on it. Donald Trump got 4% of the vote in Washington, D.C. So if Paul Manafort goes to trial in Washington, D.C., he's not going to have a jury more sympathetic to him and Donald Trump than he had in Virginia this week. And Paul Manafort has now discovered that even a hardcore supporter of Donald Trump was overwhelmed with the evidence of Paul Manafort's guilt. And she had no problem voting guilty on every count. In his Fox News interview, Donald Trump praised Paul Manafort for not flipping and said he has, quote, great respect for Paul Manafort. And Rudy Giuliani delivered the hope of a pardon today to convicted felon Paul Manafort in an interview with the Washington Post. At 5 p.m. today, the Washington Post reported, quote, President Trump asked his lawyers several weeks ago for their advice on the possibility of pardoning Paul Manafort and other aides accused of crimes. His lawyers said Thursday the subject of pardoning Manafort came as Trump's former campaign chairman faced multiple charges of bank fraud and tax evasion in an Alexandria criminal case. Trump attorney Rudolph W. Giuliani said in an interview Trump's lawyers counseled the president against the idea of pardoning anyone linked to the investigation into Russia's interference in the 2016 election, according to Giuliani, saying Trump should at least wait until special counsel Robert S. Mueller III has concluded his probe. Giuliani said the president agreed and did not push the issue further. So there's Manafort's almost promise of a pardon at the end of the investigation. And on the same day that the president discussed his own impeachment, he once again attacked his own attorney general.
I put an attorney general that never took control of the Justice Department, Jeff Sessions, never took control of the Justice Department.
And so the president, who began his presidency by asking FBI Director James Comey to drop the investigation of Donald Trump's national security advisor, Michael Flynn's lying to the FBI, and then fired James Comey after James Comey refused to drop that investigation, the president, who has spent the better part of 2 years now publicly attacking the FBI, including individual FBI agents, the president who has spent 2 years attacking the Department of Justice, the president who has attacked the Deputy Attorney General who he appointed, Rod Rosenstein, for not stopping an investigation into this presidency, the president who attacks every federal prosecutor assigned to Robert Mueller's investigation of the president and has repeatedly lied about and attacked Robert Mueller himself, that same president, once again today, attacked his own attorney general, a former senator who was enthusiastically supported in his confirmation by every Republican senator. And so Republican Senator Lindsey Graham just could not take it anymore and said this.
We believe he assaulted our legal system in every way. Let it be said that any president who cheats our institutions shall be impeached.
No, that wasn't today. That was Congressman Lindsey Graham explaining why he voted to impeach President Bill Clinton. Today, after the President of the United States once again threatened the rule of law in this country and attacked and insulted Lindsey Graham's dear friend, the Attorney General of the United States, Senator Lindsey Graham could not remember the words that Congressman Lindsey Graham said on that historic day on the House floor, and instead, Lindsey Graham said this.
The president's entitled to attorney general he has faith in, somebody that's qualified for the job. And I think there will come a time, sooner rather than later, where it will be time to have a new face and a fresh voice at the Department of Justice.
And there you just witnessed the collapse of a political civilization. The president is entitled to an attorney general he has faith in. Lindsey Graham actually said that on the same day that the president said that the standard prosecutorial tool that all attorneys general have used and approved, flipping witnesses, should be illegal. Lindsey Graham said the president is entitled to an attorney general he has faith in, and Lindsey Graham knows that the only attorney general this president of the United States would have faith in is an attorney general who will always protect the president of the United States, which now means protect the president from his friends, Michael Cohen and David Pecker, the friends who federal prosecutors in New York City say colluded to commit crimes with the President of the United States to effect an election. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on the button below for more from The Last Word and the rest of MSNBC.